And then I do these little thumbnails, very small sketches of the way the scene will look for planning the sequence and blocking out the action and figuring out where the captions and the word balloons will go, the props, all of those things. So this is going back to that scene again. So these are the thumbnails. This is sort of what a page, a couple of panels in transition from pencil to inks. This is how it looks like when it's inked. And then this is the color treatment. And a lot of people have asked me about the color treatment. Why did I do it that way? You know, with these strange color combinations sort of throughout the book. And what I usually like to say is that I didn't choose color themes for each character. That's not how it's broken up, but it's really thematically throughout the book. The different colors are sort of meant to evoke either the action that's going on or the mood that I'm trying to convey. You know, so early on in the book, the characters are shown in this kind of golden light, orange and yellow, and that's sort of to show what life was like before the storm, when New Orleans was New Orleans, and as a party city and music. And then as the storm is building, I have this kind of sickly purple and green combination, sort of like the way the clouds look in the sky. So that was kind of, it was just sort of going by feel, but I was trying to create almost like a visual soundtrack for the events of the book. Once I wrapped up AD in the fall of 2008, I set to work on writing new material, revising and expanding it for the hardcover edition, which debuted in the summer of 2009. And altogether, there's about 25% new material in the book than is on the web. And AD has led to some pretty profound and rewarding opportunities for myself. In addition to getting to speak at settings like this one, in 2010, I was actually contacted by the US State Department and asked to go to the country of Myanmar, Burma, as a, quote, ambassador of free expression. I was chosen in part precisely because AD is critical of our government on all levels and its handling of the hurricane and the aftermath. And in that way, it embodies American ideals of freedom of expression, which is a key tenet of civil society, the strains of which we are still being played out in the streets of the Middle East. And while I was in Burma, I took part in a week-long international comics conference and did workshops with local Burmese cartoonists. And that trip led to another invitation later that year to the Middle East. So I visited Egypt, Algeria, Bahrain, and Israel, Palestine in a similar capacity. And so that, again, this journey keeps going. So AD's done, then I get this invitation, I go on these trips, I meet all sorts of amazing people and have incredible experiences. I went to Bahrain. It's this tiny country in the Persian Gulf. They have less than 1 million people. And I didn't think much about it in terms of the larger picture, but a few months after I came back from there, the Arab Spring started. And country after country in the Middle East started having rebellions and protests and revolutions. And Bahrain also underwent a lot of turmoil. And it turned out that 2 of the kids that I'd met in Bahrain, who I became friends on Facebook with, both of whom were aspiring cartoonists, one was on one side of the struggle and one was on the other. They were on opposite sides. And I was getting the story from both of them, and it was just an absolutely amazing thing to witness as this was all happening. So that led to another piece of mine. Called Bahrain Lines in Ink, Lines in the Sand, which touches on the Arab Spring movement. And then that, along with AD, led to my latest adventure, which is the Knight Wallace Journalism Fellowship of the University of Michigan. I don't know if you can see the circled little head at the back there. That's me. That was taken on board a Canadian frigate across the Detroit River from Detroit as part of commemoration of the War of 1812. Random things. So before I wrap this up, I know some of you might be interested in what's been going on with AD's characters. Leo and Michelle got married, they rebuilt their lives, and Leo's comic book collection. I talked about that in the book, about how all these wonderful people from all over started sending him comics to replace his collection. So that kept going on. Michelle is now in grad school, and she's studying, among other things, marine life of the New Orleans waterways. And Leo still publishes his zine, Anti-Gravity, and he is now manager of the comic book store that he used to be a frequent customer of. So that's a really happy story. The doctor returned to his practice, which serves people from all economic backgrounds. He also sometimes appears on TV as like a expert commentator on medical issues in New Orleans. He lives in the same house and pretty much took up his life as it was before. And he threw a great party for AD when it was first published, and we came down to New Orleans, and almost all the characters, the real people from the book, were at the party. That was pretty cool. Denise has had her ups and downs. She won a grant working with small business startups in New Orleans, which was great, but then when that grant was over, she left the city again and returned reluctantly to Baton Rouge. Her mother passed away, sadly, I think 2 years ago. And the last I heard, Denise was working on a memoir, but was not employed full-time and not in any permanent address. And I think in a lot of ways that really is, exemplifies a lot of people's from New Orleans fate since the storm. Abbas tried for a number of years to keep his supermarket going, but the high cost of labor and too much debt forced him to close the store earlier this year. But he's doing okay financially. He's got some real estate holdings and investments. So he's good. It's too bad about the store. Kwame graduated from college and returned to New Orleans with Teach for America. He's back home working with the people that he loves best, his fellow New Orleanians. As with all the comics I did about 9/11, I found that AD has had great resonance for many people, not to mention myself. I'm often overwhelmed at presentations and readings by the reactions of readers, many of whom survived Katrina or similar events in their own lives. It's almost like this project opens a sort of group therapy, a way for both my readers and myself to process our feelings about this momentous tragedy. The creation of AD was a 4-year-long journey, and in a lot of ways, now it's 7 years past the storm, but I feel like even though the book is done, it's still a journey for me as the creator of it. I was talking about this a little bit with the selection committee, that I'm constantly being told things about the book and ways that people read it or meanings that they got from it that I didn't put there or I didn't intend to put there. So that is just an amazing gift to me. And I don't go back and read the book myself very often. For one thing, after I finish a project, I usually can't stand to look at it because it just looks so bad and embarrassing, and I always feel like I could have done this better and that better. And then maybe a year later, I can finally look at it again, and then I sometimes am able to appreciate parts of it. But in this case, it kind of keeps coming back, and I keep seeing it again in new ways, and it's really, really an amazing gift for an artist. But it's important to remember that the characters in AD are just a few of the thousands of such stories coming out of the hurricane. My goal with the project is that it reminds people how important New Orleans is as a living, evolving city, and how it has struggled to rebuild since Katrina. As I write at the end of the book, AD is specific and limited in its scope, but hopefully it provides a window into a larger world, one that few of us understand and that we'll be trying to make sense of for a long time to come. My goal is that AD will be seen as an addition to the ongoing story of Hurricane Katrina, the people of New Orleans, and the city itself. Thank you very much.